ज्ञानस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। सप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we will continue our Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter. This will be our 3rd session. I request everybody to please mute yourself.
Mataji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Mataji.
Dandavat Mataji, Prashanti Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Mataji, I have a few questions, Mataji. They're general only, but
Yeah.
do you want to ask now or after the session?
Yes, towards the end. Yeah.
Oh, sure, Mataji.
Hare.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what is the acronym for chapter 4?
Years.
Yeah, years. So E stands for? What does E stand for?
Eternal education.
Yes. A stands for?
Accurate understanding.
Accurate understanding. Yes, this was what we have learned last week. Yeah, and what does R stand for?
Removing the reactions.
Yes, removing the reactions. And finally, S stands for?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. So, Sindhuja, can you mute the devotees who have not yet muted themselves? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yes. Thank you. So last session, we have learned about the accurate understanding, yeah, during which we have learned about that the 4 varnas and ashramas and how Krishna tells that he is not bound by work. And finally, Krishna was suggesting in text 15 about how all the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. So Krishna, if you see in the previous section of accurate understanding, he's bringing Arjuna to the point that you should not act according to your own understanding. Always follow the great people who have set examples. Follow great souls. Follow the footsteps of those who have set the standards. This is essentially what it means to be the parampara, the Guru Parampara. Like for example, yesterday we have celebrated What did you celebrate? What was yesterday?
Guru Purnima.
Guru Purnima.
Yeah, Guru Purnima. So, Guru Purnima has a very deep significance. The role of Guru in a person's life can never be minimized. And not just it should not be minimized, it should be appropriately understood. Yeah. So today let us see what is the way to remove the reactions. Text 16. किं कर्म किमकर्मेति कवयोऽप्यत्र मोहिताः तत्ते कर्म प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे अशुभात्.
किं कर्म किम् अकर्मेति कवयो अप्यत्र मोहिताः तत्ते कर्म प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वा मोक्षस्य अशुभात्.
Translation.
Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune.
Yes. So Krishna is telling even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. That means it's not easy. You see, you read the whole Bhagavad Gita, you still have questions about Karma Yoga. What should be performed? How should it be performed? What should be the consciousness behind? You keep getting questions. In fact, there was one devotee who asked Prabhupada, what is the difference between is the Nishkama Karma Yoga equal to Bhakti Yoga? So there's a big discussion, and at the end of it, Prabhupada tells the disciple, Prabhupada says, you try to put into practice according to your current understanding, and you will get greater and greater revelations as you are sincerely practicing. So it's a science that will be revealed when we are sincerely trying to practice. Yeah. So why even intelligent men are bewildered? Because in life we come across situations where it's difficult to ascertain what is the right thing and what is not the right thing to do. For example, I will just tell you a small story from the Puranas. There is Kaushika Muni. So this Kaushika Muni was one day, he was taking bath in a river. When he was taking bath in the river, a cow, a beautiful cow came running to the bank of the river, and it was shivering in fear, not knowing what to do. And Kaushik Brahman, he was very pained to see the condition of the cow. And this cow then further ran and took shelter of his ashram. He had a small kutir on the bank. It ran into that kutir and it hid. So when Kaushik Muni was wondering why this has happened, a butcher came with an axe. He came running with an axe, and he asked the Brahmana, he asked Kaushika Muni, my dear Kaushika Muni, please tell me, have you seen a cow coming this way? So Kaushika Muni, he could understand, the intentions of this butcher. He was chasing after that cow, and now if he tells the truth that this cow is hiding in the kutir, then it will be killed. But if he does not tell the truth, that means, a Brahmana, the very first qualification of a Brahmana is truthfulness. If you do not tell the truth, you have come down from the platform of a Brahmana. You have fallen down from the platform of a Brahmana. So how to ascertain which one is the right thing to do? He was perplexed. So for a moment he thought, so tell me what he should have done. Can anybody suggest what Kaushika Muni should have done? What is the right thing for him to do? Should he tell the butcher where the cow is, or should he not tell?
He should not tell.
He should not tell. Why?
To save the life of the innocent animal.
Animal.
Cow.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Anybody else has another answer?
When he can choose being right or being kind, he needs to choose the kindness, ma'am.
Okay. To be right or to be kind. Good. These are all good understandings. Yes, that's true. What both of you have answered is correct. There is always something like whenever we are in perplexity to choose which path to go. Many times we come across this crossroads in our life, right? We don't know which way to go. Both of them seem to be apparently good. So just a second. Hare Krishna, I'm sorry for that. So for protecting a higher dharma, a lower dharma should be sacrifice. Here, the dharma of a brahmana is fine, but the higher dharma is to protect the cow. If he would have told the truth, the cow would have been killed. And, both would have had to face the reactions, both him and even actually it is not good for the butcher also. So Kaushika Muni, actually, it's very interesting how he has handled the whole situation. He also acted in a way where he did not exactly speak a lie. He said, "My eyes have seen, but my eyes cannot speak." There's a different description altogether. So the point here is, in many situations in life, it is even the intelligent are bewildered to ascertain what is action. So what is the suggestion of Krishna? That is why one should actually take the help of those who are in knowledge. One should follow the footsteps of those who have perfected. One should consult those who are superior in knowledge and understanding. This is the way. This is the way of Vedic life. Yes? Like, for example, one day the Pandavas, Yudhishthir Maharaj, then Arjuna and Bhima, all of them came together and they were discussing what is the highest? Is it dharma, artha, or kama? So Yudhishthir Maharaj said dharma is the highest because it is the guiding principle. Then Arjuna came and said, no, artha is most important because without artha, dharma cannot continue for long. And Bhima said, no, 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 kama is the highest. Pleasures, because without getting pleasure, one will not be motivated to perform either dharma or artha. So pleasure is the most important principle. So in this way, there is a discussion where people express their opinion. And in that discussion, when churning is done, that's when answers come out. So finally, it is ascertained that it is dharma that is important, but dharma and artha, which are both important. And artha, when it is performed to support dharma, that is the most ideal way of life. And kama should never be against the principles of dharma. When karma is aligned with the principles of dharma, it is desirable and it sustains life. So in this way, Krishna is suggesting that one should follow the footsteps of great souls. And who are these great souls? These great souls are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. They're called Mahajans. Mahajano yena gatah tu pantas. That means whatever path that has been set by Mahatmas, Mahajans, we should simply follow that path. No bewilderment. So who are these? There are 12 Mahajans. Who are these 12 Mahajans? You can write down. Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, then Narada Muni, Manu. Manu means Swayambhu Manu. Then there is the 4 Kumaras. Then there is Kapila Muni. And I hope you're writing. Yeah, and there is Prahlad Maharaj, Bhishma Dev, Shukadev Goswami. Yeah, Bhishma Pitama. Yeah, I'm telling. Yeah, Prahlad Maharaj, Bhishma Dev, and Shukadev Goswami. Then there is Yamaraj, Janaka Maharaj, and Bali Maharaj. These are the 12 Mahajans. So if you read actually the life and the activities of each of these great souls, we get a lot of guidance. Like for example, take Yamaraj. Yamaraj means god of death. He's the superintendent of death. We are all scared. But the kind of picture we have about Yamaraj is different because of the movie industry, especially Tollywood movies. But actually, Yamaraj is counted as one of the 12 Mahajans. Why? Because Yamaraj is a great devotee of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Yeah, and a devotee, what is the nature of a devotee? The devotee's heart is very soft and tender. But what is the service that has been given to Yamaraj? He simply has to punish all the miscreants. Yeah, he has to dish out punishments to all the wrongdoers. See them sent to hell. There are different departments of the hell. The descriptions of hell are given in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. There are Kumbhi Paka hells, different types. Yeah. So he's in charge of all these hells. And what is his purpose? I mean, what is his function? What is his duty? He has to see all the punishments are being carried out properly, and all these miscreants are given their appropriate punishments. It takes a lot of toughness of heart actually to execute these duties, but he does that simply because he's a pure devotee of the Lord. Whatever the Lord wishes, I'm ready to do. So this is Yamaraj. This is the consciousness of service. It's not about what I want to do, it's about what Krishna wants me to do. So in fact, if you read the pastimes and activities of each of these glorious personality, we get a lot of direction. In fact, the first canto of Bhagavatam presents the life and history, the teachings of Bhishma Dev. So beautiful. What all when you read Mahabharata, it's difficult to understand the heart of Bhishma Dev. You only get to see his external activities. But if you want to know the heart of Bhishma Dev, you should read Bhagavatam. What an amazing, exceptional devotee he is. It's very easy to fight on the side of Krishna because this is dharma. Yes, I will fight with, for Krishna because you're a devotee. It's natural. But Bhishma Dev, just as a service to Lord Krishna, to please him, he actually played that role of being on the opposite side. If you see it from the heart platform. Okay, so I just given some glimpses. When you have time, we can cover about all this. Text 17. Karmano hi api bodhavyam bodhavyam cha vikarmanah akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gatihi.
कर्मणो ह्यपि बोद्धव्यं बोद्धव्यं च विकर्मणः अकर्मणश्च बोद्धव्यं गहना कर्मणो गतिः.
Translation.
The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is.
Yeah, here Krishna is talking about 3 types of karma. What are these? There is karma. You can also write this down. Karma. There is vikarma and there is akarma. Karma, vikarma, V-I-K-A-R-M-A, vikarma, and akarma, A-K-A-R-M-A. So one should know, at least one should know properly what are these 3. Yeah. In short, these are called, you can, in English, you can just translate them as pious actions, prohibited actions, and divine actions. So what are pious actions? Karma. Karma means, doing good, punya karma. So you do good you get back good. Like for example, in summers when you go out, you see, some people, they just donate water, Chalivendram, they put a big pot of water and they just donate it to the masses. So it's a punya karma. You're doing good. You're doing good for the society. And next life, wherever you take birth, there won't be scarcity of water. Yeah, punya karma. You do good, you get back good. So then what is vikarma, prohibited action? What you're not supposed to do, those which are not suggested in the Shastras. When we do that, that is called prohibited action or vikarma. For example, all the crime that you're doing outside, that is vikarma. Intoxication or gambling, all these come, illicit affairs, all this comes under vikarma. Then what is akarma? Akarma means divine action. Yes, this is the crux. If one can understand what exactly is this akarma, one is liberated. So akarma means it's a divine action. Divine action means action that is performed in consciousness of the Lord and for the pleasure of the Lord. So one might say, I will do punya karma. That is better now. I mean, if I do good, I will get back good. But this logic is not sound, because you have done punya karma, but to enjoy that result of that punya karma, we have to take birth again in the material world. And when you take birth again in the material world, we are subjected to all the fourfold miseries. I mean, fourfold problems. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. There is birth, death, old age, and disease we have to go through. And the threefold miseries, Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, and Adidaivika. Yeah, they are guaranteed to any person, whether you have done punya karma or you have done papa karma. All these, you cannot avoid old age. Can we? No. And if we act recklessly, can we avoid disease? No. And simply by performing punya, can we avoid death? No. These are the real problems of life. So what is, an intelligent person understands the limitation of even punya karma. Okay, but punya karma is better than papa karma. But even punya karma has a limitation. If one can understand this, then they have understood the essence of Gita. One will understand the direction in which they have to go. That is when akarma comes into play. Akarma is that action which does not produce a reaction. Account settled. Just perform akarma and you don't reap any reactions, and simply one goes back to Godhead. I will give you a small example to understand. Process of earning money. In a company, we do a job, and in a very sincere way, and we receive our remuneration or every monthly salary. That is karma. Then let's talk about vikarma. There is a thief who comes and steals the money and he runs away. Which type of karma is this?
Vikarma.
Vikarma. And there is a devotee who, whatever earning he receives, he offers it to the Lord. And he utilizes it in a dharmic way. Yeah, in the service of the Lord. What kind of karma is this?
Akarma.
Akarma. Simple. This is all we need to understand. Yes, first thing we need to understand the importance of akarma, understanding the limitation of papa, punya, karma, and trying to transcend them. And with the desire to actually finish this quota and go back to Godhead. And then the next point is how to do it. Okay, text 18. Karmanya karma yah pashyeda karmani cha karma yah sa buddhiman manusheshu sa yuktaha kritsna karma krit.
कर्मण्य कर्माय पश्चेत अकर्मणि च कर्मय स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु स युक्तः कृत्सन्न कर्म कृत्.
Yeah, translation. Translation. Excuse me. Hannibal, one of you please read the translation.
It is not on the screen.
Oh, Sindhuja, you have not projected. Haribol's, yeah. Yeah. Translation.
One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. And he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities.
Yeah. So what Krishna is telling here is one who can see inaction in action and action in inaction. Does it sound confusing now? Okay. So let us understand what is inaction and action. Inaction means to give up activities. For example, some impersonalists have this idea, okay, all actions are producing reactions, so let me just stop activities. No more reactions. But Krishna is telling such an inaction in previous chapters. There is a technical term that Krishna gives to a person who prematurely gives up action without giving up the desire for the fruits, without giving up the desire for sense pleasures. What is such a person called? Does anybody remember? Who is a pretender? A person who is a pretender.
Duplicit person.
No, there is a Sanskrit term, Matiji.
Dumb.
It comes in third chapter. It's called a mithyachari. Yeah, mithyachari means it's a pretender. A pretender means one who pretends for having given up the desires for sense gratification, but yet he sits in a state of trance. Such a pretension is forbidden by Krishna. Like, for example, let's see the example of Vishwamitra Muni. He has given up all his activities. He was a responsible king of the entire Bharatvarsh. He's given up the kingdom and everything, has just walked into the jungles and he was just performing tapasya. But in his heart are still the seeds of desires. That is why when Menaka came, it broke his tapasya. He was allured by her and he gave in to the desire. So in this case, if you see, his so-called inaction is not actually transcendental. It is not a karma. Yeah. So so that is what that is not the kind of desired inaction. The inaction in action and action in inaction. It's a little tricky to understand. What is inaction in action? Let's take the example of a devotee performing different activities. Let's say cooking or driving a car, regular routine activities. So, but the devotee is cooking and he's thinking of Krishna, and he's driving and in meditating on Krishna, or performing whatever activities. He's performing the official work with the desire that whatever results come out of these, I will offer them to Krishna. This kind of consciousness is what is inaction in action. That is, you're performing the action, but these actions are not giving you any reactions. That is called inaction in action. You could get that? So you can just take the example of Arjuna and Duryodhana. Arjuna, the activities are the same. If you're seeing, Arjuna is also sitting on a ratha, Duryodhana is sitting on a rath. Both have a flag, and both have a chariot, and both have weapons, and both are fighting. But what Arjuna is doing, the action is, there is actually inaction in that. And in what Duryodhana is doing, it is not as per the desire of the Lord. So that is how here Prabhupada is telling a person acting in Krishna consciousness is free from karmic reactions. So the entire key lies in the understanding of one's eternal position as a servant of the Supreme Lord and to perform action in that consciousness. That is the key for all problems. Yeah, one short answer to all the problems in life. That is why the transcendental knowledge is compared to fire. Transcendental knowledge means it's just not merely the understanding that, the understanding of Atma and Paramatma, but to actually gain a realized knowledge of that and apply it in our life. And such realized knowledge is like fire that burns away all the sinful reactions. Text 19. यस्य सर्वे समारंभा कामसंकल्पवर्जिताः ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणं तम् आहुः पंडितं बुधाः.
यस्य सर्वे समारम्भा कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिता ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणां तमाहुः पण्डितं बुधाः.
Translation.
One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reaction of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge.
Okay. So Krishna is just stating that one who is situated in such knowledge and he's performing the activities with such knowledge, for him or for her, all the reactions of the past karmas are burnt. Just like fire. That's the reason knowledge is compared to fire. What is the function of fire? It burns. So transcendental knowledge also is like the fire that burns away these reactions. Okay. So text 20. त्यक्त्वा कर्मफलासङ्गं नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयः कर्मण्यभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः.
त्यक्त्वा कर्मफलासङ्गं नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रय कर्मणि अभिप्रवृत्तो अपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः.
Translation.
Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings.
Yeah. So this is how a person in knowledge acts. How does he or she act? Abandoning all the results, attachment to the results of his activities. That means, Krishna further explains in the next few verses what exactly it means to, abandon the results of one's activities. And ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive activity. So this stage is automatically, attained by a devotee of the Lord. Why and how? Because a devotee of Krishna is attached to Krishna with love and devotion. So that superior taste actually takes care of all these lower desires and natures. And even if a person wants to perform a karma, it can be performed only by one's attachment to the Lord. Because if you want to offer the fruits of your results to the Lord, it requires a relationship, right? It requires a feeling of bhakti or devotion. So that is why it is said all the yogas culminate in Bhakti Yoga. Karma, Jnana and Ashtanga Yoga, all of them culminate in Bhakti Yoga. Because any kind of yoga you perform, finally it has to reach the point of Krishna. And Krishna has to bestow those results. If not, the yoga is not paripurna. Okay. Yes. So the Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love of for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore there is no attraction for the results. In the previous second chapter, we have learned that verse Vishayani vartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjyam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. That means by developing a higher taste, a lower taste can be given up. We have learned that also in spirituality, there is no artificial imposition or there is no suppression. In fact, Krishna himself tells in Bhagavad Gita, what can repression accomplish, O Arjuna? You should never try to repress your nature. But you have to give up your lower tendency by attachment to a higher principle. Whenever you get a higher taste, the lower things can be given up. And what is that higher taste? That higher taste is bhakti. When you experience that taste of devotion to the Lord, then naturally the lower things will be given up. You know, just like there is a flower, there's a beautiful flower that blooms. And as a flower blooms and blossoms more and more, after some days, what happens? All the lower petals, the sap in the petals get dried up and naturally the petals fall off. Right? It's a natural action. We don't have to forcefully pluck out the petals. Similarly, even in our heart, whatever the kama desires or kama vasanas are there, as when we are practicing bhakti sincerely, the sap of that desire for material enjoyment, it dries up. And because of that drying up, all these petals of desire for material enjoyment, they fall away naturally. There is no artificial suppression, repression, or exclusion. It's a very, very, very natural process. Okay, text 21. Nirashiriyata chittatma tyaktva sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham.
निराशीर्यते चित्तात्मा त्यक्त्वा सर्वपरिग्रह शरीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वान्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम्.
Translation.
Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions.
Yeah, such a man of understanding. What is that understanding? Understanding of one's real position. How does he act? He acts with mind and intelligence, perfectly controlled, and gives up all sense of proprietorship over his positions. So, what is this giving up sense of proprietorship? And there's a wonderful example which Govind Prabhuji often quotes. There are a group of people, let's say they're all constructing a temple. Yeah. So you go to a person who is constructing it, the laborer who's working there. You go and ask him, my dear sir, why are you constructing this temple? Then he says, I need some money. I need money to do the palan portion of my family. I have to raise my family. So I need money. That's why I'm doing this work. Okay. So this is work in the mode of passion. Yeah. And then he goes to a next person and he asks, my dear sir, why are you constructing this temple? He says, ye Bhagwan ka mandir hai. This is the temple of the Lord. If I construct it, I get a lot of punya. So that, I have a better birth next life. So this is the consciousness of another person. So certainly this consciousness is superior to the previous person, right? He's doing in the consciousness that at least, I'm going to get some punya karma out of this activity that I'm doing. So this is activity performed in mode of goodness, sattva. But still, let me tell you, this is in mode, activities performed in the modes. But you go to another person, you ask him, sir, why are you building this temple? And he says, I am not building this temple. Krishna is the doer. He has desired that this temple should manifest. I'm simply being an instrument in this plan of the Lord. And it is his mercy that he has chosen a person like me in such a service. And I'm so grateful to Lord for giving me this opportunity. And I sincerely desire that this temple manifests in all its magnificence, and I will give my best for it. And may the Lord be pleased with my activity. So this is activity in the mode of transcendence. So for this first person, what he's doing is the actions. If you see, all the actions that is performed is the same for all these three people. But for the last person, who is acting in this transcendence, for him there is no reaction for the work that he's performing. And the other person who's doing it for punya, he gets a good result. Yeah, and for the person who's more acting in the mode of passion, he gets immediate gratification. He gets the money that's what he was working for. He gets the money, he can spend it on his family. Okay, so this is a small example. So a bhakta is therefore immune to all the reactions of the work. Yeah, because he's performing it with that consciousness. That he even actually has no proprietorship over his own body. He understands that this body has been given to me by nature, by the mercy of the Lord. And whatever I am doing is by the mercy of the Lord. These eyes, this ear, nose, my senses, all these is the property of the Lord. And he has given me this, as a parikara, instrument to perform actions. And it's by his grace that, the actions are being performed. He understands everything as it is. In knowledge, this is the person in knowledge. In Discover Yourself, we learn what is the definition of knowledge? Knowing things as they are. So he understands what is the reality of this body. He understands what is the reality of this material nature. He understands what is the reality of Atma. He understands the reality of Krishna, the Paramatma. And he understands what is the nature of Kala. These are the 5 subject matters of Bhagavad Gita. And one who thoroughly understands this is situated in knowledge. And in that knowledge, when one performs action, there is no reaction to such an action. Yes. So for example, as I said, a person even in that state, he loses the feeling of proprietorship over one's own body. Yesterday we have celebrated Guru Purnima. It is also the disappearance day of Srila Sanatan Goswami. So Sanatan Goswami ji, he was a great saint who lived in India 500 years ago. So he belonged to a very high class Saraswat Brahman family. And he also worked in the regime the court of Nawab Hussain Shah. He held a very high position as minister. So in the later part of his life, he joins the movement of Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was staying at Purushottam Dham, Jagannath Puri. And at that time, Sanatan Goswami comes to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what happens is, when he comes to visit Mahaprabhu, on the way, he actually acquires a skin disease. Actually, there are a lot of glories of Sanatan Goswami. He is one of the greatest and highest scholars, and he has produced so many books of great significance. Yeah, the Sarartha Darshini, the Sarartha Varshini, Hari Bhakti Vilas, innumerable great literature of Sanatan Goswami, even Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So, this is a small pastime that I'm sharing in relationship with how a devotee does not have a proprietorship over one's own body. So when he's coming to Jagannath Puri, on the way, he acquires a kind of skin disease. So because of the skin disease, his whole, body was oozing a lot of pus and all that. But he covered himself, and he visits Mahaprabhu and he offers obeisances. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he sees Sanatan Goswami, immediately he goes to him and he embraces him. And he feels bad because, when Mahaprabhu has embraced him, all the pus that was oozing out of his body was touching the beautiful body of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He's Krishna himself in the complexion of Srimati Radharani. He was effulgent, like molten gold. That was his complexion. He was Krishna himself. We can never even begin to imagine what is the beauty of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So he embraced Sanatan Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami felt very bad. My lowly body with all these pus and mucus has touched the Supreme Lord's body. He feels very bad and he goes away from there. And again, after 2 days, Sanatan Goswami happens to go by the way that Mahaprabhu is coming. Again, Sanatan Goswami offers obeisances, and Mahaprabhu immediately again embraces Sanatan Goswami. And again, he feels bad. And this happens repeatedly. And Sanatan Goswami feels so disgusted with his own body that, with my body, mind, and words, which are dedicated for the pleasure of the Lord, what am I doing? The Supreme Lord Mahaprabhu, he's simply coming and embracing me, and in return, all these dirty pus is sticking to his body. No, this body should be ended. Yeah, and in next 2 days is the Jagannath Rath Yatra. I will go and end my life by just falling under the big wheel of the cart of Lord Jagannath, and I will give up my life. So he makes a sankalpa of that, in fact. So Mahaprabhu, the knower of everyone's heart, because he is the same Paramatma who is situated in everybody's heart, he understands the intention of Sanatan Goswami. And he again goes to Sanatan Goswami. This time Sanatan Goswami was like, he didn't know where to go. So at that time, Mahaprabhu looks into the eyes of Sanatan Goswami and he says, my dear Sanatan, this body of yours is not your property. It is my property. And you cannot end it out with your own desire. So Sanatan Goswami understands that, Mahaprabhu understood what he was planning to do. He begs forgiveness. And at that time, Mahaprabhu again embraces Sanatan Goswami. And with that embrace, his entire body will regain its past health and glory and glow and effulgence. So this is the heart of a devotee. For them, body means it's a medium to serve the Lord. This is a very high standard of devotional service. We can only appreciate and take inspiration, but we should never try to imitate. Yeah, and that was the reciprocation of Mahaprabhu as well. So for a devotee who is constantly engaged in the service of the Lord, their body, mind, everything becomes the property of the Lord. Text 22. Yadrichalaabhasantushto dvandvatito vimatsarah samah siddhavastidhau cha kritvapi na nibadhyate.
यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टो द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सर संसिद्धो असिद्धो च कृत्वा अपि न निबध्यते.
Translation.
He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is studying both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions.
Yeah, so he who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord. That means in our life, we all experience gain and loss. So we need not run after gain. It will come on its own accord. It is said that the amount of happiness or distress a person has to go through in life is already predetermined. So no matter how much over endeavor you do, your quota is already destined. You will get that much only. Yeah, like somebody was asking me recently, I don't know, one of their sometimes we try multiple times to get through to make it through a particular entrance exam, and it does not happen. Why? Probably it's not there in your quota. Yeah, it's karma. Simple, it's karma. So on the other hand, like I'll give you a small example. You dig a well, yeah, but then there should be water in the underground, right? For you to get some water out of the well. So to get that water out of the well, there are two things that are needed. Firstly, there should be water underground, and secondly, the endeavor should be done to dig the well. If any of these two are missing, the water does not manifest. For example, if a person digs and digs, many hundreds of feet down, he's doing the endeavor, but there is no water, then he does not get the result. And the other extreme is, so first, this extreme, what we are talking about is over endeavor. And the next extreme is giving up the endeavor altogether. Matlab, there is water there, but a person is too lazy. Why should I dig? Let me think about it some other time. Then how will you get the water? That means there is punya karma in his account, but he's not digging it. That means he's not performing sufficient endeavor to get it. So it will not manifest. So appropriate endeavor is the key. It should not be an over endeavor, or it should not be inaction. Both of them do not result in a good, both of them do not yield a good result. Text 23. Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavasthita chetasah yajnayacharatah karma samagram praviliyate.
गतसङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य ज्ञानावस्थिता चेतसः यज्ञायाचरता कर्म समग्रं प्रविलीयते.
Translation.
The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence.
Yeah. So the work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. So how does a person acquire this transcendental knowledge? Anybody? Through all this, what we have learned, we have understood the key is the transcendental knowledge here. When one attains to the state of transcendental knowledge and one acts in that knowledge, all the reactions are nullified. So how to get this transcendental knowledge? That's the next question. Yes? Anybody? How to get this transcendental knowledge?
By surrendering to a guru, Mataji, or?
Yeah, by surrendering to a guru. That's the first step. Practically, I'm asking about some practical steps.
Devotional service.
By performing devotional service. Yes, wonderful. Devotional service, actually, it's such a beautiful process that it actually transforms all the theoretical knowledge into realizations. That is why bhakti is translated as devotional service. Service is the essence of bhakti. Okay, any other?
We must endeavor to implement the instructions of Krishna.
Excellent. We must endeavor. That means we should show our sincerity. Great. Any other? So we endeavored, that is in our hands. Is that sufficient?
Krishna should also grant.
Yeah, it's Krishna's mercy is also required. This is entirely about how, Krishna's operation works. Two things. This is the story of Damodara Leela also, right? Our endeavor and the mercy of the Lord. So we, in all our sincerity, we hear the message, how to acquire this transcendental knowledge. We hear the knowledge which is coming in parampara. We try our best in our sincerity to the best of ability to actually apply whatever we have heard. And when Krishna sees that sincerity in a student, sincerity in trying to hear the message from the teacher, and seeing the sincerity in trying to apply this knowledge, when he sees that this person is sincere, then Krishna himself gives the transcendental knowledge. This is what is stated in the 10th chapter. Tesham evanukampartham aham ajnanadamtama nashayami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhasvata. Tesham evanukampartham, anukampa, out of my compassion. Aham ajnanajamtama, I will dispel all the ignorance. Nashayami atma bhavasto. So I will remove all the ignorance. Jnana deepena bhasvata. Jnana. Today's poster, the deepa, jnana deepa. So what will Krishna give? In our heart, he will kindle the lamp of knowledge out of his compassion. And when does that compassion, how can we attract that mercy and compassion? By our sincere endeavor. So our sincere endeavor, our sincerity in hearing, in trying to practice, that attracts the mercy of Krishna. And when Krishna's mercy is attracted, he himself gives that knowledge. He himself kindles that jnana deepa, the lamp of knowledge. Hari Bol. Last text. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina.
Brahmarpanam Brahmavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmeva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina.
Translation.
A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature.
Hari Bol. So this is the last verse of the day, and this will require further deeper explanation, so which we will see next week. So that is all for today. Thank you for reading the translation. This is, in that reading, I could see so much of sincerity in wanting to understand the subject matter of Gita. So this is exactly the sincerity that attracts the mercy of the Lord. So thank you all very much for your sincere participation through all our sessions of Gita. We will end here today, and I can take a couple of quick questions. If anybody has some questions, you may ask. Yes,
Mataji, yeah, Mataji, actually, chanting purifies, right? So I just want to know, from our side, we don't need to work on anardas, or what exactly? It's like, I mean,
Yeah, I got your question. So your question is, chanting will take care of everything. I don't have to do anything. Is that so?
About the anarthas especially.
Anartha nivritti, in the process of anartha nivritti. So it is both. Actually, chanting has the complete potency to remove all the anarthas from one's heart. Yet, one should not hide behind chanting, saying that the 2 hours of chanting that I do will suffice, and the rest of the 22 hours, I will do whatever I want. This actually comes under one of the offense in chanting of the holy names. Yeah, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name, 7th offense to holy name. Yeah, there are 10 aparadhas, nama aparadhas that are given in Padma Purana. So we should not simply take it for granted that chanting will cover up my wrongdoings. We should personally put endeavor. Like, for example, you're especially asking me about anarthas. Yes, anarthas are there in our hearts, but we should also try to endeavor to overcome them. Yeah, for example, let's say I'm really overpowered by anger. When I get angry, I have no control over myself, and I lose control and I become very destructive or offensive. Then we should not say that, okay, if I chant for some more time, this anger will go away. Until then, I cannot do anything about it. No, one should seriously try to, endeavor to do, again, the same thing, endeavor principle and mercy principle. One should put in efforts to understand, why am I getting angry? Yeah, how can I rectify this situation? How can I express my anger in ways that is not destructive? How can I express my frustration in a way that I'm understood, but I'm not, that the person does not get hurt? So, anger again is a big topic. So one can take constructive steps to overcome the anger, or at least handle the anger appropriately. So when we put in that endeavor, and again, when we are chanting and taking shelter of Krishna, so Krishna within the heart sees, yes, here is my wonderful devotee who is trying sincerely to overcome this anartha. Let me help. So wherever there is endeavor, there is help. Wherever there is a sincerity, there is mercy. So one should actually proactively try to overcome one's deficiencies. It says, simple saying is, God helps those who help themselves. And also, it is said that we are walking on the path of bhakti. So, and as we are walking on the path of bhakti, it's like a kacha road. Yeah. And when we're walking, there is a thorn that is stuck in your foot. You can still walk on it, but you can walk easier when you take out time to remove that thorn and then walk. So taking out the time to remove that thorn is actually this contemplation as to how to overcome this obstacle in my life. And when we sincerely do that, Krishna reciprocates.
So Mataji, you mean to say at least chanting will show us what exactly we are going through, or show us our anarthas probably? I mean, when compared to the people who are chanting and non-devotees, I mean, at least we are in a position to understand what is the issue, or at least I don't know. I mean, you got me, or
No, I didn't get your question. Can you repeat it?
Mataji, it's like at least chanting will show. I mean, I know it has got a lot of power, but then with chanting, at least we are able to understand what is the issue we are facing, or issue means no, probably anartha, what we have, or something like that. Whether
okay, so your question is, does chanting help us to understand what we are struggling with? Is that your question, Mataji?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I mean, when our chanting is proper, we see things clearly. That is what is Chitto Darpana Marjanam, right? Chitto Darpana Marjanam. The mirror of the mind is cleansed when we chant sincerely. Everywhere, sincerity is the key.
Yeah.
See, even when our chanting is inattentive, offensive, and we are speaking on the mobile on one side and chanting on the other side, this kind of chanting is not going to bring any great effect. We truly put endeavor to chant our good rounds, in the Brahma Muhurta time, then all these results come. The Chitto Darpana Marjanam, the mirror of the mind is cleansed. Of course, you can see things very clearly. And Prabhupada has suggested that whenever we are in confusion, or when the mind is agitated, then just take off from all of your work, sit down and chant. and you get a lot of clarity. Yeah.
Okay, Mataji, that's what I mean. So probably it's like, I mean, people will chant for a lot of years and but then they fall down. And I mean, nowadays devotees also will do divers and all that. So probably in the process of following bhakti and all that, are we not addressing our emotional needs, or is it like I don't know. Mataji, are you able to understand my point?
Yeah.
Or
I'm understanding what you're speaking about. So Mataji, it is like, fire is fire. Whoever touches it, it burns. Yeah, whether we are devotees or non-devotees. And we are not in the standard of Prahlad Maharaj, wherein fire does not affect one. Prahlad Maharaj's pure devotion is so high that even when he was thrown into fire, it didn't affect him. Yeah. So that was his standard of devotion. And our bhakti, I'm sure any of us, if you touch fire, it burns. So the laws of material nature apply the same for everybody, let us be a devotee or a non-devotee. So in fact, bhakti should be practiced, that is why, under guidance. In the name of bhakti, we should not take to extreme positions. That yes, today I have understood this is the path and goal. I am done with all my relationships, or nothing matters to me. Some people act in extremist ways. So one should, that's the reason Prabhupada in every purport is suggesting one should practice this under guidance. One should practice this under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master and his representative. So proper guidance is needed. And about all these mishaps that are happening in the lives of devotees, it is simply because of lacking appropriate guidance and taking extreme stances, extreme positions. And especially from maybe for women, it comes to, me and my, one attitude which really kills is me and my bhakti, and don't touch me. I understood what's the goal of life. I will practice my bhakti. I don't care what the rest of my family thinks. No, bhakti is inclusive. It never excludes people around them. I will tell you Pishima, who's a sister of Srila Prabhupada. Her husband was not a devotee, and she had to cook non-vegetarian for him. And she in fact did that, and Prabhupada has even initiated her. So the understanding of Krishna consciousness is very broad. It's inclusive. So without the improper understanding, if we try to apply in a very extreme way, so always it bounces back. As I said, fire is fire. If we act in extreme ways, whether we are in bhakti or we are in sense gratification, the reaction comes back from the partner, or the reaction comes back from the nature. So we are all today living in the world of pandemic. Because we are devotees, is Corona avoiding us? No, we have to follow the same measures. And if we are careless, we are attacked. That's the same thing.
Yeah, Mataji, and one more thing, because we are in this preaching movement and we may encounter some people, I mean, a couple or where they're going emotional things and all that. So actually, how we
Mataji,
guide them?
your voice is breaking.
Mataji, actually, now?
Yes, better, Mataji.
No? Yeah. Mataji, we are in preaching moments. So probably during our preaching time, or we may encounter such couple, who are going through this emotional turmoil, something like that. So, I mean, what should we guide them? I mean, they should understand emotionally what they are going through also, right? I mean, it's like you just can't...
Prashanti Mataji, I think this will be like a probably one-on-one discussion that will probably help you resolve this better, because it's highly individualistic. Yeah, I can give general principles on a talk like this, But specific principles require details and it can be explained on one-on-one discussion. So you may call me and I will definitely try to discuss.
Yeah, Madhuri. So probably what time you're comfortable or exactly?
You can message me, Madhuri.
So should I?
Yeah, you can message.
Yeah, okay, sure, Madhuri.
Yeah.
Madhuri. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes, yes.
Mataji, like we put efforts in certain direction, which we get from our inner will or from our consciousness. And like Mataji, you said that endeavor to dig a well, but we put endeavor to dig a well, but there is no water. So don't you think that our efforts are wasted? And Mataji, how to know that which direction is meant for us, and so that we can put our efforts in that direction? How do we come to know, Mataji?
This is intelligent question. Exactly. So that is why our Vedas are, there are a lot of Vedangas, Upavedas, and all those which kind of support the Vedic system. One such, so the question of Saumya is, we have said that sometimes we dig for water and we don't find water. Her question is, how do you know if the water is there or not? And how do we know if we are putting our endeavor in the right direction or not? So this is where there is something called Jyotish Shastra, astrology. Astrology is a great science. It gives us direction. It gives us indication. In the Vedic culture, when the moment the child is born, the astrologer is to give some predictions about, what are the propensities of this child. Yeah, so it's a meaningful it's a meaningful step for the parents to actually show the astrology of the child right in the beginning. It will be clearly stated sometimes in the astrology that this child is meant for this. He has more of a Brahminical propensity, or this person has a more Kshatriya propensity or a Vaishya propensity. It talks about what this person's past baggage is. Yeah, and tentatively it gives direction, but it does not give any prediction. The mistake that people generally do with Jyotisha Shastra, like astrology, is that they think astrology can give 100% accurate predictions and that this is what is going to happen. No. Many times, sometimes I'll tell you the limitation of Jyotish Shastra. It speaks especially during matchmaking between two individuals, the horoscope matching. There are many horoscopes which were matched and which ended in a divorce. And there are very many horoscopes which did not match at all, but they continued living. There is that limitation. So why did now there's a big topic. Now I don't want to start it because it will attract many questions. Yeah.
In this time, most of the people, they don't believe on astrology.
No, I didn't, Saumi, I didn't complete my answer. So one aspect is Jyotish Shastra. Yeah, that speaks about what is there already. And the second thing is, what is your upbringing? What is the environment we are brought up in? Yeah, and what are the teachers, who are the teachers who are guiding us? So all this make a person evolve into a particular personality. So both of them have their own significance in making appropriate decisions. Yeah, tell me now your remaining part of your question.
Like Mataji, some give putting the efforts in certain direction for clearing an exam, as you said, Mataji. So if they are not getting out the results, so how all their efforts, like many years, some people give clearing or writing certain exam. So Mataji, all these things have wasted, but their inner will is saying that they are meant to do this certain thing. So, Mataji, like inner will, it always it never guides. Sometimes we say, na Mataji, that we should do what our inner will is saying. That is our interest, basically. But we are not getting efforts out there. So Mataji, what one can do in that situation?
Yeah, the practical thing is, if you see even MBBS, I know many friends of mine who have given 5 long terms and finally they got into MBBS. Imagine in 5 long terms, you should have completed MBBS itself. But endeavor after endeavor, endeavor after endeavor. Some people do many long terms and then finally get that MBBS seat because they're just crazy about that, the white coat. Okay, nice. That's fine, laudable. You have this will to do it, and you have repeatedly tried, and you did not give up, and you finally got it. So one is, as you said, something from your inner self prompts you that you want to go in that direction only, then there is nothing wrong in performing that action with more and more. But still, one should also be a little practical. Like, for example, if a person with an average IQ tries and he fails, he has a chance. Okay, by improving myself, I can. But if let's say a person has a very low IQ, hardly can understand anything, so it's frustrating. Any number of attempts that person may make. So what I'm telling is, it's many factors. It's just not one factor. In fact, 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita speaks about this. There are 5 things that are required for an action to fructify. Adhishtanam tatha karta, there should be a proper kshetra, there should be proper instruments, there should be the person, place of action, the instrument, and finally the mercy of the Lord. Mercy of the Lord is only 1/5. There are 4 more factors that affect the success of any action of an individual. This will be spoken on in the 18th chapter. The Jyotish Shastra, which I spoke about, is just an indication, gives an indication of is there any block.
So Mataji, choosing certain direction, Mataji in Hindi saying हवा में तीर चलाने के समान, ऐसा नहीं होगा क्या Mataji?
No, what's your question?
Like Mataji choosing certain direction for our career or something. हवा में तीर चलाने के समान.
Yeah.
पता नहीं है ना?
It is now. If you're not, that's the reason orientation is very important for career choices. Career orientation is very important. It's not because somebody wants me to become something, so I'm getting into this stream. Please, career choice has to be done very consciously and taking so many factors, and one should consult. We should know. That's why, all these, I will tell you, all the devotees, most of the devotees in Bombay, in Pune, they have a system before they make a career choice, especially when they finish their 10th standard. What is that system? They first thing is they consider what's given in their astrology, and second thing is their own understanding of the performance of the child for the last 10 years. And they also go to we can also take assistance from a professional career counselor. Yeah, there are some wonderful tests, psychological testings, which actually will tell you which by answering some questions, actually this test will give you a direction, what you're actually meant for. And also one can take the opinion of one's peers, opinion of some superiors, and with a lot of discussion, one should make a conscious choice as to why I'm getting into this profession. Take understanding the pros and cons, what is my capability, and then jump into it. Like, for example, in the Hanuman Leela, Sundara Kanda, before when all the Vanaras were on the bank of the sea, there was a discussion, who can cross over this ocean? What is the capacity of each one? So every Vanara knew their capacity. I know how many yojanas I can jump. I can jump, let's say 1,000 yojanas. This is my capacity. Another Vanara said, I can jump 2,000 yojanas and this is my capacity. And they knew that, one Vanara said, I can jump, but I cannot come back. So one should have an understanding of one's own capacity. So all these factors together come, and that's when one has to make a conscious decision about one's career choice. And unfortunately, it's not very much prevalent in our Indian system of education. But this is how one should do. And in fact, you can even advise people around you that this is when you take up to this process of understanding what you're meant for before we jump into it. At least a person can be saved of a lot of turmoil. in the path of career.
And then finally decided one should have eka buddhi without disturbing in other direction.
Yeah, that gives a focus, no? When we make such a conscious choice by lot of elimination process, the focus is already there.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Yeah, Haribol. There is a very important question actually, making a conscious career choice. Yeah, so that was a lot of discussion today. Thank you all very much. I will close here. If any of you have any more questions, you can please post in the group. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, everybody.